If you only knew the power of the dark side, it is your destiny.
Hello everyone, this is Take a Gate. It is September 19th, 2014, and I'm bringing a story on Alternet, and it's written by Terrel, Jermaine, Star, and the title is Three Black Professional Women Say Staff at Exclusive New York City Hotel Accused Them of Being Hookers, and this was written on September 14th, 2014, and it says here that this place called Lebain at the top of this hotel, in August 28th, it says that the three women pictured here, Kentucky, Washington, Sydney Matlock, and Jalen Thomas, say that member of the security team from the hotel accused them of being hookers, and that the women had just come down from the bar at the top of a hotel when they settled into the lobby and were approached by several men that offered to buy them drinks. And when they sat down in the restaurant at the hotel, the security guard approached the women and accused them of being prostitutes. And here is a quote from the woman. After security guard ushers the brother away, he comes over to me and my friends and says, "Come on, ladies. You can buy a drink, but you can't be soliciting." Washington told Alternet in an interview, "We're like, soliciting?" He said, "Don't act stupid with me, ladies. You know what you're doing. Stop soliciting in here." We're like, "Soliciting what?" So this is some of the subconscious racism and we call structural racism and institutionalized racism that black people tend to find out here in society. And as you can see here, their jobs are a lawyer and teachers. So why they would be singled out among all the people there is just not coincidental. It is profiling. And it was compounded by the fact that several weeks later they received an email from the staff member at the hotel inviting her and her guests back, 4 guests, at a free dinner at Lebain valued at $400, but no excuses and no apologies for the treatment that this security guard gave these women. And this is in New York City, of all places, where you would think that tolerance for people of different backgrounds and races would be an afterthought. And as you can see, it is not an afterthought. And I want to tie this with this other article that is found on Black Nerd Girl, and it is written by a letter from an open media, it looks like. Not really a contributor. The title of it is called Racial Discrimination and Resignation of Dr. Misee Harris, an open letter to media. So perhaps Miss Harris is the author. But it says here, as the black bachelorette hopeful was forced to resign from her dental practice where she was beloved by both staff and patients, the reason for her resignation was over the clash of ethics involving her outspoken social media support for the late Michael Brown and the unrest in Ferguson, Missouri. And according to her recollection of yesterday's disturbing events, in her own words, as recorded by her partner, Emmy Award-winning producer Chris Silber, and this is her pictured right here, Miss Harris. And on Thursday, it was September 4th, and Harris, she's a doctor, was called into an unannounced meeting at the dental practice where she worked at the pediatric dentist and was recently offered a partnership, supposedly, and the practice. And Harris is the only African-American dentist in this practice, and I believe the practice is in Tennessee. And she has worked tirelessly with underprivileged patients on the Medicaid to ensure quality smiles. Now, the partners had blocked work colleagues. She had blocked work colleagues from accessing her accounts. And it was explained that the doctor whose partners at the office and who led this meeting had a friend spy on her Facebook page. So these screenshots were taken from her Facebook page and were sent to the doctor who led this meeting to have her resign. She was told that on her Facebook posts, the racial issues in America were unprofessional, and that the biggest bone of contention to her partners was a cartoon graphic, and it is related to the police murders of several innocent African Americans across the nation. The partner held up the picture and asked Miss Mies, "What do you think we, meaning the white colleagues, are all like this?" And she is being targeted for this graphic. It says open season on black folks. And adjusting belt, going to school, driving, eating, running, playing music too loud, wearing saggy pants, playing tag, wearing a hoodie, asking for directions, and a broke down car. Now, she did not produce the graphic, and I don't see how the graphic is offensive when it is a politically convenient tool to explain the plight of black Americans. Once again, conservative Americans, who are predominantly Caucasian, have a problem with their racism being identified and called out for what it is, because it is institutionalized, subconscious, structural racism and apartheid. She has composed herself and asked her partner if she had an idea what was going on in regard to Michael Brown, and then she finds all this information out. So this is another example of women who are African American being targeted for their racial identity. And going again to another case, this one happens to be in Connecticut, and this is written by Amelia Rosch. In Connecticut, African Americans are twice as likely as whites to have their cars searched by cops. And I will not read all of this, just like the other articles, but I will let you see this here. And it says the study looked at 360,000 traffic stops over an 8-month period in Connecticut, and found that while African Americans make up less than 8% of the state's population, they make up 14% of the traffic stops. And it says across the state, African American drivers have had their cars searched for contraband little over twice as often as white drivers, but 77% of the contraband found during these traffic stops were found in cars driven by white people. And I have no animosity towards white Americans. I have an animosity towards stupidity, racism, and hate. So when this subconscious intolerance and profiling happens to black Americans, Latino Americans, Native Americans, Asian Americans, I have a bone to pick with it when it's all one-sided, and it does not reflect the society's population as a whole. There are more white Americans than there are ethnic minorities. So the ethnic minorities and some white Appalachian Americans are targeted not only for their ethnicity, but because they are impoverished. And these are effects of apartheid and structural and institutionalized racism. And it's not about class. Unless you have money, they will ignore you to a greater degree than if you don't. And no matter what your educational status might be, you cannot take off your skin color, you cannot take off your ethnicity, and you cannot take off how much money you may have in your wallet. And we do know that with civil asset forfeiture, as I described in the last video, they will come after you and take your money, which is robbery, for having too much of it. I can't think of anything more egregious than going into the wallets of hardworking people and taking the money that they earned just because you think that they might be dealing drugs when they have to prove it in civil court, when you know they're not dealing drugs. But you take it anyway, and you steal it and give it to yourself and your friends in law enforcement. It's ridiculous. So I will leave a link with descriptions in the comment below. And I would advise people to share these stories, because a lot of people don't know what's going on here in the United States and how far this judicial capture has gone. And until we turn it around, it's going to continue to get worse. And I would advise people to look up Operation Condor. If you don't know what that is, it happened in Argentina during these purges, where the military would round up people that they did not like, were perceived as leftist, liberal, outspoken critics of the government. They would kill them and dump their bodies into the ocean on flights en masse, so their bodies would never be recovered. And then they took the children from these people and their families and basically sold them to the highest bidder and to right-wing fascists in Argentina. This is Take the Gate. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Signing out.